Welcome to the Aerospace Executive Podcast, featuring in-depth conversations with executives, leaders, influencers, and journalists in this dynamic, high-stakes industry. Hosted by Craig Picken, founder of North Star Group, the boutique executive search firm for the aerospace industry. You'll learn how top aerospace executives are developing their people, competing for talent, overcoming challenges, and adjusting to industry trends to drive growth and profits. And now, let's join your host, Craig Picken.
Hey, Matt. Once again, thank you for being here. It's early 2019, and I think this is the third podcast we've done this year.
I think it is. Yeah. We're going to talk a little bit about pilot shortage. So we're excited to get into that. And we've talked about some other things just here recently about consolidation of the industry. We talked about business aviation and how they're shooting themselves in the foot. So people can check out those other episodes on iTunes and all their favorite podcast apps. But let's jump into the pilot shortage. So what are you seeing going on the ground right now?
It is real. The pilot shortage is a industry created shortage that is now real, and it's about to be, I personally think it's about to be dire for a couple of different reasons.
And what do you mean by industry created? As in it's not a product of less people wanting to go into the field?
No, I think it's a little bit of everything. And I think it comes down to, look, we had in right after 9/11, you think about a horrible recession that, it crushed the airlines. I mean, I think 2 weeks after 9/11, I got on an airplane in LA, and it was a nonstop flight to Orlando. And there were 15 people on board a 767. And you just look around and you're like, wow, this ain't going to work for anybody. And it was dire straits for all the airlines. And, a couple of them, couple of Delta, America, a couple of them declared bankruptcy. And as part of that, there were some massive pilot layoffs. So you take a big group of pilots, and I'll just give you my best friend, for example, who is now a pilot for me. I don't want to say which one. He got laid off for 8 years.
Goodness.
He had to go. He was ended up going and flying in the Air National Guard during that time to make a living. So at the end of the 2000 or the 2001 recession, all of a sudden the airlines are calling people back, and you know what? 30% of them didn't come. And those 30% look at they'd all been laid off a couple times because the industry was perennially up and down, and they all looked at their kids and they said, "Hey, look, go do something different. Go do software, go trade stocks, go sell shoes, do something. Stuff get pilot."
Okay.
And I think that really hurt. And I'm a pilot. So, I get it. And I think that really hurt the industry. And that, then it came in, a couple more great recessions. And now, the industry is kind of, it's at a crossroads. You've got a lot of folks that, that are about 60 years old that are starting to, think about retiring. You've got some new FAA rules, which require both pilots in the cockpit to have 1,500 hours and an air transport pilot license. So, that takes a lot of your younger pilots out of the cockpit. They can no longer really come up through the ranks. So that's sort of an FAA mandate that Congress put in. And then you've got some other dynamics that are happening. You've got a lack of people coming into the pipeline. Okay. So now you've got a three-legged stool, which is really which is stressed at just about every level. The regional airlines now are really seeing it because whereas they were paying they're a starting pilot at a regional airline like a minute $25,000. Now they're coming in at 60, 65,000 plus bonuses, which really changed the economics there.
Okay.
The airlines are scooping up everything they can, which is putting a stress on business aviation. So, I really think that as an industry, we got to start to get our arms around, how do we either keep pilots in the cockpit longer, or how do we quickly grow a pipeline and get them experience so that we've got a future we can deal with.
Well, yeah, let's talk about that a little bit, because in terms of what the executive who's listening to this takes away, what would you like to see? Maybe starting from the industry as a whole, some ideas for how do you develop that pipeline or keep pilots in the cockpits longer? But then specifically, what can individual executives at, and maybe even at smaller companies where you have a little bit more power, some authority, some flexibility than you do at bigger companies, what can those executives be doing to give themselves a competitive advantage in growing their own company pipeline of pilots?
Yeah. So, from the business aviation standpoint, I think the reality of the matter is starting to set in. Pilots are just going to be more expensive, so the cost of operating your jet is going to be more, and you just got to live with it. I'm hearing a corporate pilot in New York now is easily $250,000, which is a pretty significant increase. So from the business aviation side of the house, we just got to costs are going up, and it's a reality. And oh, by the way, we now have competition. Where there's competition, or where there's a lack of supply and high demand, prices go up. I think the aircraft OEMs got to start getting involved. I'm not sure that they realize that they could be the biggest losers here. Lack of pilots or pilots that are too expensive mean, it could hurt their pipeline. We're not going to sell as many jets. So I think that at some point the OEMs got to start getting involved, and we got to start thinking strategically as an industry, with them taking the lead as to how do we start getting a 16, 17-year-old kid in high school excited about being a pilot, start them training to be a pilot at 16 or 17 years old, and oh, by the way, make it affordable for them to do it. You think about you think about how expensive it is. It's more expensive than a college degree to go get a pilot's license. Wow. So I think that as an industry, the OEMs got to take the lead. In order to protect their order books, they got to say, okay, we can start nipping this in the bud, or at least playing a role. And interestingly enough, I think as an industry, the pilots unions, look, they really don't want to see change. You take ALPA, Airline Pilots Association, or the APA, which is the Allied Pilots Association. They don't want to see change. They're very happy with the status quo.
Right.
They have to lobby Congress to say we don't need an adjustment to any rules or anything like that, because they want to see the shortage continue.
Mm-hmm.
And it advances their position. So,
right.
As an industry, we got to get in front of this, and I think if we wait much longer, it's gonna really hurt.
Yeah, very interesting, especially in a day and age where, you mentioned 16, 17-year-old people. Right now, the trend is away from even getting driver's license at that age. There's both society and individual state governments are making it more difficult and less enticing to get even a driver's license at that age, let alone be thinking about flying airplanes. Mm-hmm. So culturally, we're just at both in society and in government, we're moving away from that being an enticing option. So yeah, and without some sort of concerted effort from the other side, whether it's from the OEMs or from just the aviation industry as a whole, yeah, most kids at that age are not thinking in those terms unless they're thinking military, I would assume. And so I'm sure there's maybe some fertile recruiting ground there is taking people from the military, but yeah, getting to them at that age, unless there's some sort of concerted effort, it's not like culture is against you. The tide is against you. So you have to account for that.
Well, it comes out to, we have, you look at our high schools and we have a lot of Common Core, but nobody talks about trades anymore. No, you remember shop class? Very few schools have shop class anymore. Very few, or everybody wants to go into coding and programming because they think it's the way for the future. And I look at, hey, look, there's being an airline or a corporate pilot, it's a good job. You think it's a good $150,000, $200,000 a year job that doesn't really require a college degree. It's nice to have, but you're thinking about, hey, if I'm a young kid in high school and I'm thinking college really isn't for me, why can't we take 10,000 of these kids and start to put them through a training program now at 16, so that when they're 21 or 22 or 23, they're guaranteed a good job and they're well on their way to success in life. So that's where I would like to see happen. This is a great place to be. It's a lot of fun, travel, see the world, etc. Oh, by the way, you're not stuck in a cubicle.
Exactly.
45 hours a week, dealing with traffic to and from work. So it's a cool thing, and it's an exciting thing. And I think as an industry, we just need to get ahead. Now is the time to start.
Love it. And let's finish up with this. Craig, what's the best way for people to connect with you?
Phone number is 910-509-7129. Email is craig@northstaresg.com. Or my website is www.northstaresg.com. If you want to talk, reach out. If you get my voicemail, leave me a message. I'll call you back within 10 minutes.
All right.
Much prefer to talk than email, so give me a call.
Much better. And then for the podcast itself, you can grab it on any of your favorite podcast apps. So either Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, places like that. You can grab the latest episodes. You can subscribe so you never miss an episode. You can go back and listen to some of the episodes that Craig, you and I have done on really deep topics on where the aerospace and aviation industries are going, just as a whole, things that you would like to see happen in the industry and what executives can take away from it, as well as some of the interviews that you've done with leaders and influencers in this space, so people can check that out. And once again, Craig, I appreciate you having me to kind of talk through some of these things, and hopefully the audience gets a ton of value out of it.
Thanks, Matt, for being here. Appreciate it as always. We'll do it again soon.